First, I just want to say sorry for the big gap in filming again. It's been a bit hectic here. We've had sick rats, we've had loads of problems with our house again, problems with the computer, problems with the camera. I've not been well again, keep getting these sore throat bugs and losing my voice. And it's been really hard to get everything done. So I'm going to have to try and have a big catch up with all my videos. Now the first thing I want to do today is just say this is Barney. He has got a lovely hammock from the rat warehouse, and he has made a lovely little nibble hole in that hammock. Hey Barney. Fred makes holes big enough to stick his whole head out, but Barney just likes to stick his nose out and just see what's happening. Now, if your hammocks get very chewed, it's very important not to use dangerous hammocks. We stopped using hammocks altogether for a while because our girls were chewing them up and making them very dangerous. So you can just see on that side there's the hole that Freddie's made to stick his head out. Now, if your rats do chew the hammocks and they have lots of little holes in them, it's very important to make sure that the hole is big enough for either tiny like that so they can't possibly squeeze out, or if you have small rats, make sure that it is big enough for the fattest part of the rat to completely come out of the hole. And Barney's very good. He'll just sit there in that little bit with his nose, but if I had a girl in here, she would be trying to squeeze right through there, and it's very important that the rats can get right through the exit holes that they've made. You don't want a rat to get you know, left hanging out of a hammock or trapped or injured. So keep an eye on the hammocks. A couple of little tiny holes are okay, and say just watch your rats. If you've got a rat like Barney and Fred who don't try and get through the holes, that's fine. If you have girls, they try and get through, so make sure if they make a little hole and they're trying to get through, you just make the hole bigger yourself. Just get some sharp scissors and make the hole big enough for the whole rat to fit through, just for safety. Now, I like to buy my hammocks from the rat warehouse. They're lovely thick fleece, they're very well made, and we have some nice corner hammocks here that you can see in that corner there. They're really useful for adding, you know, just to the corner to make the corner safe so there's no big drops. Rats absolutely love them. You can also get the tube hammocks. Now in the winter you do need, if your house is cold, you do need to make sure your rats are nice and warm. And I'll just show you here the little hammocks. They do flat hammocks as well, but here is actually a smaller size hammock, and this is good for smaller cages or small rats, and it's lovely layers that you get. So the bottom layer is actually a double layer of fleece, so we've got black and purple, and then you've got a top single layer, and the pirate print is a very popular, unique to the rat warehouse, very nice. So you do different sizes, so that's a standard size hammock there, and that's the XL there, which is great for your big cages and for big rats. So make sure your cage is nice and warm. If you are having problems with the positioning of your cage, now normally all my cages will be on coffee tables, so the rats are off the floor. I hate to have cages on the floor. At the moment, the boys are on the floor, and that's because I've had to move everything around in my house again, but they will soon be going onto a table like that. But at the moment, they're on the floor. Now, my house is not too drafty, but it has been quite cold, so we've had the heating up. Now, another thing with the heating is you don't want to dry the air out too much, and Freddie's had a little bit of a snuffle. He's on antibiotics, he's getting better. He may or may not show himself in a minute. You'll see Barney's in there moving about. You can see him in there quite happily. But keep the humidity okay. Now, we have a dehumidifier, and I spoke to my vet about the humidity, and he suggested to keep the humidity in your rat room to around 50%. So it's important as you turn your heating up not to let the air get too dry. So what you can do, if you do not have a table to put your cage on, you have a big cage. Now, we've got carpet on the floor, which isn't ideal in the rat room. It's the first house I've ever had to have carpet in the living room. But, you know, the floor is not too bad here. But if you have got a cold house, I would suggest that you could have a piece of wood underneath your cage. If the wood needs to be bigger than the cage so it doesn't wobble, it needs to be completely flat. Make sure if you use a piece of wood that you do not use cedar or pine, because the oils in the cedar and pine are very harmful to rats, to their respiratory tract. You could actually have some thick card underneath, but whatever you put underneath, I wouldn't recommend that you use polystyrenes or plastics or anything like that, but just even raising the cage, the base of the cage off the floor by an inch or so is enough to help keep the base of the cage warmer. And what we have done here in this room, because we've had workmen in and we've had, you know, it's been a bit colder. Oh, there's Barney. Hey Barney. Barney. Hello baby. Hello. Yes, I'm still filming, so you might want to run away and hide. Hello, gorgeous man. Hello, handsome boy. Hello, can we see you there? Hey, he's lovely. Hello, lovely man. You can't come out while I'm filming, but guess what? We will come out later, and let me see if you'd like a little treat. Would you like a little treat? No? Not a little treat at the moment? Maybe not. Maybe later. Anyway, so we've had workmen in. I'm just going to shut this for a minute so he doesn't hop out on the floor, because I don't have all my barriers up at the moment. We've had workmen in, so the front door's been open. Very annoying. So even with the living room door shut, it's been a bit colder than normal. So I've put some card around the cage, around the sides and the back. Now they're just thick cardboard from packing boxes that came with, you know, the rat bedding and stuff like that. And that can just protect the sides and the back of your cage. It's important you still have the front and the top open for ventilation. You could put some low card even just around the bottom area, just to protect the bedding area or halfway up, but you must have ventilation still. But if it is very cold and drafty, that is not good for your rats, so you need to do what you can to keep your cage winter warm without the rats overheating or having inadequate ventilation. So if I use cardboard, it's often quite dusty, the cardboard, so when a box comes I'll open it up. I will wipe the card off with a damp cloth, just slightly damp, just to get off any dust. Give it a quick steam clean. You mustn't soak it, just a quick steam clean, and then I will leave it to dry for a good 24 hours before I use it, just to make sure it's perfectly dry. Maybe 2 or 3 days is better even, in a warm room, so the cardboard can dry out nice and quickly and dry all the way through. And that just means you have lovely clean card to put around your rat cage. So that's one thing you can do. I don't recommend draping towels and sheets around the cage, because you know, they're going to get pulled in and chewed. You mustn't put your cage right next to a radiator or a heater, because your rats will get too hot. Now inside the cage, make sure that you've got, I don't know if you can see down there, we can't really see, but there is a cardboard tube in there and lots of paper and places for the rats to hide, as well as their hammocks and things. And you can see another thing I just mentioned on the safety. I was doing another video on the safety of cages, but no huge drops. There's enough space for the rats to climb, but no huge drops from top to bottom. So we've got 2 platforms, 2 ladders, we've got 2 hammocks, and we've got 3 or 4 cargo nets and a rope. So plenty of places to make the cage fun and exciting and easy to get around, allowing the rats to climb, but making sure at all times that they're safe. Now this is very, very important with all rats, but especially baby rats. Yeah, we've got another cargo net over the back, which is also acts like a sort of platform. Make sure that your rats, with baby rats, I would have another level in here. I would have another platform. I'd have 3 platforms, and there would always be cargo nets, ladders and hammocks all the way down. If your rats chew the hammocks, which my girls did, then we replace the hammocks with cargo nets. So I'd probably have 6 cargo nets in here if this was a girl cage. I would have a Savic plastic cocoon house downstairs instead of the hammocks to keep them warm, and a cardboard tube. So always 2 drinking water bottles in case of failures. Now I normally use the classic type bottles, but Fred and Barney, when they came, they had the Bieber bottle, which is a Savic bottle. It's got a long spout. They really like that. They, for some reason, they much prefer drinking out of that one, so they've got that as their main water bottle. So that's got nothing to do with keeping your rats warm, but just the fact always have 2 water bottles in case you have a failure. It can happen, the bottle can leak, or one can get knocked off. It tends to happen more often with our girls, so they wouldn't unhook the water bottles. But there, that is just basic, the layout. Now, lots of toys and things, you can't see, but down the bottom there's lots of toys, and the toilet corner. Now, in the toilet corner, I always have just the paper pellets. Now, there's 2 types of paper pellet we use. One is the Back to Life. See there, Back to Life. And the other is the Papillet paper pellets, which just come in a plastic bag. You get both of those from Rat Rations. So what I'm doing is, the toilet corner is always just pellets. It's good to have a separate type of bedding in your toilet corner for encouraging the rats to use the litter tray. But what I've found is, especially with the boys, that if I need to have the separate pellets, but I found out that if I will put the card in, just the card in my main layer, that the cage is getting really smelly with the boys. So the card is good, it's lovely and soft and warm, but what I'm finding is the cage will smell really quickly. So with my boys' cages, I'm putting down a thin layer of the paper pellets. I'm then putting a thick layer of the finer card, shredded brown card, and that will absorb the moisture. It doesn't necessarily absorb the smell as well, but it'll absorb the moisture. A lovely soft springy bed which will help to keep your rats warm. Now the finer card, the shredded card, is much better for keeping your rats warm than the paper pellets. So what I'm suggesting to you is, the paper pellets are quite expensive, but they're really good for odour control. So a thin layer of paper pellets, followed by a thick layer of the finer card, shredded card. And what you can do for your daily cleaning, especially if your rats don't use the toilet corner, is to just pull out the cardboard. It's quite easy to lift out this cardboard layer and just replace the card, and your bottom layer should last several days there on the bottom of the paper pellets. So it makes the cleaning quite easy and means that your cage won't smell as bad. So I think that's the most cost-effective way of doing this as well. It does cost more than just using the card, but we found when we just only use the finer card, the cages were getting smelly really quickly. So what I'm recommending is a thin layer of paper pellets, a thick layer of card, which you scoop out daily, the smelly bits and the wet bits, and just replace the card daily, and you can leave your base layer of the paper pellets that can stay longer. And the other thing you do need lots of, especially in the winter, inside the bed and in the bottom of the cage, I put a really big good handful of the softness paper, and this is also finer card softness paper. So I separate it, pull it apart, pull it into smaller pieces. Sometimes it's quite long strands. Now especially with baby rats, you need to pull those up and separate them and pull them into short strands. So with baby rats, I would have the strands would probably only be about 2 inches long. So just a few centimetres long, because the danger with long strands and baby rats is them getting the strands caught around their necks and their bodies. So very important. And even with longer rats, I wouldn't want a strand longer than about 4 inches. Yes, it's time consuming. If you have children, and the rats were primarily bought for the children, you can get your children to sit and pull this apart, but remember, even if the rats are for your children, you as the adult are responsible for the care and welfare of those rats. It's up to you to check them daily to ensure that they receive all the care they need, that they're being fed and cleaned out and taken to the vet, and it's your duty as a parent to pay the vet bills. So just please remember that if you've bought rats for your children. So that's basically how I'm proposing to do my bed now. So always in the toilet corner, just the paper pellets. Now if your rats are toilet trained like my girls, that's fine. You can clean the little toilet tray every day. So that's basically what I'm doing. paper pellets in the toilet, thin layer of paper pellets across the whole of the cage, topped up with a thick layer of card, which we scoop the dirty card out daily and replace, and lots of shredded paper, soft shredded paper. So that, and again, that is the finer card soft nest. Short strands for baby rats. Pull it apart. You don't want any long, that's about the longest strand I'd have for an adult rat, and about half that for a baby rat. So that is basically what I'm doing to keep my rats warm. And I'm sorry Freddie hasn't come to see you. We did very briefly see Barney. Yes, it's been a difficult winter with poor little John Snow, who's not very well, and I'll do an update on John later. But just remember, the rat warehouse for your hammocks, Sabby is very knowledgeable. She's one of the few people I know who've had rats longer than I have. She has lots of information for you. She'll always answer your questions. I think that's Freddie Bear down there. Freddie Bear. Hey Freddie. Hello darling. Are you coming out? I don't get my camera. Oh no, he's scooted away. Oh well, we'll see Freddie another day. Hey Barney. Bye from Barney. Hey Barney. I see his little nose now. There he is. So cute. Anyway, I am going to try very hard to catch up with all my filming, and the next part of Think Like a Rat should be coming up very soon. And I'm just about to put some pictures on the Facebook page. So it's bye from me and Barney. And you did briefly see a bit more than his nose, but look at that twitchy little nose. Bye. Bye, Barney.